Welcome to another Consults Over Coffee. I'm Dr. Michael Jones, and I'm joined today by Talib Grant, who's the drummer for the Latin-based jazz, rhythm, and blues band LaSopa out of Blacksburg, who you're hearing right now. And Talib's here to discuss rhythm, what it is, what it does, both in music and in life, personally, collectively, and culturally. I think you're going to enjoy this discussion. All right. Well, welcome to another Consults Over Coffee, conversations about health and healthcare. I'm Dr. Michael Jones, and I'm here with Talib Grant, who is a senior at Virginia Tech, right? And a drummer, musician for a number of years, currently playing in a band with an old friend of mine called, the band is LaSopa, which is really sort of funky Latin rhythms and just cool stuff. And that's what we're here to talk about today, is music and rhythms and the power of music and rhythm in life, which is a fairly broad subject, but I think there's a lot of good that comes out of that, and a lot of, I don't know, self-help, mental improvement, mental clarity, wash the blues away kind of thing. So thanks for joining me on this Saturday morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let's start with the basics. We were talking a little bit. I mean, how do you define, what do you consider rhythm? I mean, you're a drummer.
Mm-hmm. The technical definition, just to put it out there, is that strong repeated pattern. And for me, when I think of rhythm, I think of to think of the base minimum rhythm, I think of two notes or two instances. It takes two things to create a rhythm. And a large part of rhythm, I think, it can be repeated. But I think it's just to, once we hear something, and then once we hear something with over another space of time, so we hear the first note, and then you hear some space, and then a second note. I think that's the minimum qualification to be a rhythm. And after that, you can repeat it, and that can have a number of different meanings. But that two notes is just that minimum needed to qualify something as a rhythm.
Yeah. So basically, a recurring pattern over time, and we typically think about it as being in the setting of music, but there are all kinds of rhythms. There are circadian rhythms. Everything's blooming now and the pollen's in the air. So we're seeing seasonal rhythms. The light day cycles change. I mean, we're just surrounded with rhythm. And I think, most people are familiar with rhythm as music. I mean, you're tapping, people listen to music, they're tapping their feet, they're nodding their head. You see people at a concert and they're all kind of moving together, and which is, I think, the power of music and the power of rhythm, in that it can really guide and influence behavior on a lot of levels, and at some pretty visceral levels. And I think we had talked previously about the importance of rhythm in culture, across cultures, for since recorded history. If you go back, some of the first things found in recorded history, there was evidence of percussion as part of rituals. And it's interesting that drums or percussion were some of the first instruments that were used. And that continues to this day. And we did mention, there was a little diversion with European culture where it became more wind instruments or stringed instruments. But in this country, that kind of morphed back to percussion-driven music, largely because of African influence in the United States. And as we said, African culture has driven music in this country and around the world from day one. I mean, every drummer that I've ever talked to, at some point they all go back to that, to understand that, and then to kind of understand the complexities that can exist in those rhythms, because those guys, that's next level stuff. How they subdivide stuff, how they do polyrhythms is just crazy. But at its core, it's people beating, it's claves, it's people beating two sticks together. It's people drumming on a table together. And there's value in that. And you obviously as a drummer experience that. I mean, what's that like for you? I mean, for folks who haven't played in a band or don't play music, what's that like? I mean, when you're in the middle of all of that.
Man, it's a weird feeling, honestly. It's hard to it's weird because I'd say it's weird because it's hard to describe. I go back to a vivid memory, and I think it was October, where our band LaSopa was playing, and we had a very large crowd, and a lot of people were dancing, feeling the music. It's, as a drummer on the drummer's throne, there's a certain level when you get locked in as a band, and everybody can feel that, okay, we're playing together, we're all hitting notes together, but we're also putting our emotional and physical and mental together to create a unified sound. It's empowering as a musician and empowering as a person to be able to create that holistic feeling as a band, but also once your audience can perceive that, and once they can, like you said, nod their head or dance or interpret and predict what's coming next.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And you can tell when you're playing and you're doing stuff like that, as a musician, when everyone's locked in, you feel it. Like it's that suddenly it's like the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And to be part of that is just an incredible feeling. And then when you realize, when you look out, and as a bass player and you as a drummer, I always felt like, okay, if I look out and people are moving and people are getting up, I'm doing my job, because that's you're putting something out there that resonates with them. And that and that's good. And I think the beauty of that for people is just, it is powerful stuff. And going back, drums have been, and rhythm has been part of religious culture in multiple societies for years and years and years. And it has profound behavioral effects. If you're locked into that, you're in a very different place than before you encountered it. And it has great effects on improving your mood, improving your state of well-being, improving your connectedness to other people. It's interesting to me. I mean, I'm sure you've seen this. If you set up a couple people at a table or something and give them, I don't know, claves, sticks, triangle, whatever, simple stuff, and just let one person start, all of a sudden, and it doesn't take very long, people kind of lock in on that. And these are people that they're not necessarily musicians or wouldn't consider themselves musicians, but we all intrinsically feel that beat. And people are pretty good. I don't know I mean, like, there's studies where people right?
Yeah.
They're good at identifying rhythm, and they're good at telling you when you haven't, and so I think that's really, there's value in that. And I mean, you had mentioned to me about the drum head leaving toys out for your roommates, right?
Yeah. So basically I live with like 3 other roommates. I live off campus. I'm in college, but I have like a little drum practice pad, and I've got a plethora. As a drummer, you've got the drum sticks, you've got the brushes. I have a plethora of drum toys, including like shakers and stuff. And I would just as a trial run, just leave for a couple weeks, do like a drum pad and a pair of sticks, and just leave them down there, just walk away. And to my surprise, within a week, all my roommates pretty much have picked it up at least once. And I'd be in my room upstairs and I'd hear them drumming away at something, or just like playing a little rhythm here and there. And it's interesting because I think in that case, the accessibility to rhythm, or to initiate like drums for them by just leaving it there and saying, hey, this is available whenever you want it, is so really the accessibility it's accessible on the easiest and the lowest level. And I think that really helps to get them into it, is that easy of access.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the thing. I think it's a little daunting. I mean, if you set a drum kit down in front of somebody, go, why don't you sit? There's like no way. There's just no way. But if you do, you just leave a practice pad and a pair of sticks, or claves, or a cajon.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get any simpler than that. My wife, who was actually played percussion in a band, Connor played with us, this band called One Job, that there was a rule that like because we have old cats, my wife was like, you're not bringing a drum set in this house. And so she was a saxophone player in marching band in high school.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, good. We need a sax player. She's like, no, I'm not going there. But she's got this great sense of rhythm and time. And she's like, well, what about this? And it's amazing what you can do beating on a box. It's just mind-boggling, and just to kind of sit there and let yourself go. I mean, when nobody's around, I'll sit on it and play. I'm terrible, because it takes time. You have to invest yourself in it to figure it out. But can I make simple sounds and rhythms and yeah? And I think, for me, that those moments, I'm lost. I am oblivious to the rest of the world for that period of time. I'm not worried about work. I'm not worried about what's going on in the world. I'm not worried about the guy that cut me off in traffic on the way home. I'm just looking for that sweet spot. And when you find it individually, right? I mean, it's a powerful thing. You know it, I'm sure, right? If you're as you're sitting around, I mean, you can tell instantly when, like, yeah, that's it. And then other people, if you put a group of people at a table, it doesn't take them long to kind of lock in on something.
And good, yeah.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say that as a drummer and a college student, I'm where I'm at now in life. There are a lot of people that are college students that are just like, I played music in the past. I kind of have this on and off relationship with it currently. And what I found is a lot of people have come up to me saying, whoa, you play the drums? Like, drums are my favorite instrument. Can you teach me sometime? And so I find that I have tried sometimes, brought people to the drum set. I think the practice pad, like you said, is a more accessible, less of a stressor, simplifying it down. But I think what I found is that there are a lot of people that have natural curiosity when it comes to music, rhythms. A lot of people have natural curiosity, and sometimes they either need to push themselves or give themselves a quick nudge into actually investigating that more. Like for my roommates, that was putting the practice pad downstairs, or for some other people that was, hey, I know a musician. Can you teach me a little bit, like a trick or something? Can you teach me, where do I get started? I think there's like a natural sense of curiosity. And to your point, your other point of when you're playing, you're kind of like, you're playing actively. And so that art of playing, and like, I'm not a neuroscience expert, so I couldn't tell you what that means on that level in terms of what goes on in the brain. But when you're playing an instrument, it's like you have to be active, you have to be present in the moment. And that's one of the, I think the biggest benefits for me is when I'm playing drums, I have to be present in the moment. And so I can't be thinking about something that happened 2 days ago, 5 minutes ago. Oh, I was late. I was early. This didn't go my way. I have to focus on playing the instrument. And that's just the way our brains are designed. We have to, our primary focus when we're playing music has to be music for the most part.
Yeah, well, and I think it does, right. And it does force you to let go of a lot of stuff. I think we are intrinsically rhythmic beings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our bodies have rhythms. You have a heartbeat. You breathe at a certain rate. The muscles in your gut move at a certain frequency. The stomach moves at 3 contractions per minute. The lower colon moves at 6 contractions per. I mean, there's all this rhythmic physiology in our existence.
And eardrums to hear.
And eardrums to hear. Absolutely. And the other, I think the other part that's kind of cool about that is that if you do look at what happens to somebody's brain when they're listening to music or they're playing a rhythm, it really syncs a lot of things, but you kind of get into this neural state that is almost a sort of like a trance state. And in a lot of cultures, rhythm is used to either induce a trance, like if you're talking about a shaman, you know, in a lot of cultures, they often use drums. The shaman puts himself into basically a rhythm induced trance, and then you know, does what he does, performs his healing ritual, but he gets himself into that state. Or conversely, drums are used to put the audience into that state. And that's the power of that. I mean, you can essentially hypnotize people with rhythm. And to some extent, when we're all sitting there going like this, you know, with all the headbangers are out there, whatever, everybody's grooving, everybody is sort of locked into that same state. And that's the other part that I like about it right now, is just that these are such divisive times that, you know what, you sit 6 people down at a table who don't know each other and give them all percussion instruments, and I got news for you. In 20 minutes, they're all going to know each other pretty well. Right? I mean, they're just going to be, they're all on the same team.
It's that natural curiosity too. Yeah,
it is. And natural rhythmicity. And it tickles good pieces in your brain. And there's great power in that. And I think, as you alluded to, a lot of times in our society, the bar gets set high. Like if you're not Gene Krupa, if you're not, you know, if you're not a pro, if you're not on tour, if you're not spot, it's like, well, you're not good. And it's like, well, it's not really about judging, right? I mean, yeah, do we all want to get good, and do we all like recognition? Sure. But I mean, I suspect, let me ask you this. If you would probably still play regardless.
I would, yeah. I mean, there were times my freshman year. So when I first entered college, freshman year, I'm from Chicago, and I go to a school that's in Virginia, and that's like a 12-hour car drive. It may be a little bit less, but I didn't know anybody at this school, and so when I first came to this school, I didn't know anybody, and so I knew I enjoyed music, and I knew I enjoyed playing, so I got access to drums on campus. And what I would do with my time was go back to drums. I wasn't playing with anybody. I would play the music. I would practice. I'd get a few hits in here and there on, like, when I had time. And for me, that was one of the things that I really valued at that time in my life, because I could kind of go somewhere else. Like after I had all my academics, had all the things in my stressors in my day, I could go and do something else that was very different and felt very different. And that's just, yeah, I keep playing for sure, without a doubt.
Yeah. And do you think that because of your musical background, do you think it helped you assimilate into, I mean, because frankly, Blacksburg, Virginia and Chicago, Illinois are pretty polar places.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, my wife was born and raised in Chicago. I was there for 13 years. So, you know, amazing town. But yeah, far cry from Blacksburg. And so that's a big leap. I mean, did it help you? Did it help you with the stress of transition, you think?
Yeah, I mean, it did, without a doubt. And it not only helped me with the stress, but it actually connected me to more people. Is another part of me, just me being alone and practicing. Eventually that became me practicing with friends, and that became me hanging out with more people, other musicians, and then that became me starting a band named LaSopa, and now we're playing gigs. And so there was kind of that progression for me, but it all started with me just sitting down and playing and just messing around is what I'd call it, because it doesn't have to be always the best sounding musically. Sure, there's value in practicing and doing all these other things designed to help your technique and help your playing, but there's just so much value in like eliminating all of that and just sitting down and being with yourself and exploring, like, what does this rhythm sound like today? What can I do with my left foot and my right hand? And what can I make this sound? How can I produce that? And going off my curiosity. Yeah, go ahead.
But to get into that space too, don't you think you kind of have to be unencumbered with, you know, man, I got an exam tomorrow, or man, you know, traffic coming over here was crazy. I almost got wrecked 3 times, or, you know, people are up in arms about this, that, or the other thing, and you're bombarded with all of that. I mean, those kinds of feelings and thoughts are actually, they get in the way of doing what you're talking about doing, which is playing, truly playing, right? I mean, not practicing as in, okay, doing my rudiments, but like, okay, I'm trying to create, I'm trying to find out what's in me at the moment. And man, if you have that stuff there, it's like, it's just, it gets in the way of that. And playing also, at least for me, helps me get rid of that stuff. You know, because I may take a couple minutes just to play, and just that stuff disappears, and then you can explore, and that's powerful, man. And that's what I kind of would like to convey to people, is like, I think, as you said, leave the practice pad out, you know, and a couple sticks, or just leave a couple sticks out. The bar doesn't have to be high for people. That there's incredible benefits emotionally to doing this. But you don't have to be Gene Krupa. You don't have to be some phenomenal musician to feel improved, or you have your life improved by making a little music. And you don't have to be a phenomenal musician to make music with other people, even on a very simple level. I mean, the journey never ends. That's the thing that's, you know, I mean, that's just crazy about it. It's like, no matter how good you think you are, there's just tons more to learn.
And another point on that is that you don't have to have the most expensive equipment. I know that's a thing that some musicians, maybe even a lot of musicians, something that has hit me at some point. Well, do I need this new pair of sticks? Or the way I started playing drums, my parents tell me, is I was beating on pots and pans, and that was my rhythm when I was just a little like baby, and just crawling around and hitting stuff and being curious. And so at that point, I didn't even need to have a practice pad. It was just having something to just presenting that rhythm, making sounds.
Well, and we had talked earlier too. I mean, if you think about, you know, the Indian, like the tabla players.
Yeah.
That's a hand drum. And you listen to those guys, and they do incredibly complex rhythms and weave in and out of each other, and it's amazing. But at the end of the day, it's essentially a very elaborately constructed hand drum. That's it, man. And you can get a similar experience with people just give them all claves. Let them, you know. And I think I'd have to find, but I saw like a clave band one time, and it was like,
Really?
yeah, it was funky. It was guys just playing rhythms, all different rhythms that all kind of wove in and out of each other. But at the end of the day, it was 5 guys, each with a pair of sticks. And they made this collective experience that was, you know, it stopped you in your tracks. You're like, man, that's nothing but a couple pieces of wood. And so that's what I just, you know, I kind of, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be good, right? I mean, you just have to want to be there. You know, and I think that's really kind of maybe the most important thing. And I mean, I applaud you for sort of like leaving the bait out for your roommates, kind of go, hey man, nibble on this, you know, and because people are curious and people will, but you know, and again, right. I think also kind of like let them do it in a place where they're not going to feel judged or
I wasn't there, so they wouldn't feel judged from me.
Yeah.
At least at some time. So when they first were getting into it, I was removed. I wasn't even in the room.
Yeah. But it's also, it's important for, like, you know what, this is just there's value in it. Just, you're going to feel better if you do this. And there's value in it. And that rhythm also has the ability not only to make us feel better, but also to bring us together. And anyone who's listened to music clearly, or has been to a concert or been to a show, understands exactly what that is. But it's also sort of within all of us to be able to create that ourselves and create that similar experience on some level. So you know, keep getting your friends out there, man. I keep trying to draw my son into it, and it's just like, you know, but people do. They worry that, like, oh, Mom, I'm gonna suck. It's gonna be bad. And it's like, well, welcome to the show. They're not all top 40 hits. So that's great. So, what's up for LaSopa? What are you guys doing this summer?
We are still trying to figure that out, along with a lot of people in these times. Very honestly, we're all in kind of different stages of life and kind of just moving at different rates. We're in that, I have to admit, we're in that college band phase where it's like some people are starting to graduate. But one thing I will tell you, with Connor, I was playing we were doing some like recording too, in addition, but just trying to keep playing music individually, as well as a group. We'll see this semester. We played a gig a couple, maybe a month back. And so that was really good for us, but, we'll kind of have to stay tuned on that one, is what we're seeing, what we're doing as a whole band.
It's you guys are a great band, and I've got some of the lead in and outro to this is for the folks in the audience is some of the music you guys do, which is just fun quality stuff. So, yeah, well, thank you so much for doing this. It was really nice to have you on the show, man. And, you know, hopefully people will kind of take the bait, go drum on a tabletop, sit everybody down and drum on a tabletop. It's fun. It's good for your head. It brings people together, and music is for everyone. And on that, man, that's another segment of Consults Over Coffee, and we'll be back in another week.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us on Consults Over Coffee. I'm Dr. Michael Jones. I've been joined today by Talib Grant, and we've had an excellent discussion on rhythm. And if you like what you're hearing, you can check out LaSopa at LaSopa, LaSopa VA on Facebook. We'll be back next week.